How pivotal is this moment in your view?
I think it's a pivotal moment in European history. It's a pivotal moment in world history. I haven't seen anything like this since, I guess, the Balkans crisis was the last time we had a crisis of this scale in terms of threatening the underlying rules-based order.
And what would you assess as the risk now of further escalation from Russia? Does Putin stop here, or does he go further?
I don't think he can stop here. If his intention all along was to recognize the two breakaway republics, then you wouldn't need 150,000, 160,000 troops. You wouldn't need amphibious assault vehicles, missiles in Belarus, troops in Belarus. I think he's going to go further. What I'm afraid of is that he's now going to go out to the area that the LDR and the DPR claim for themselves. So he's going to push further west into Ukraine and possibly even towards Kyiv if the front line opens up that much.
So that's how it could unfold. The Baltic states have long warned about Russia as an aggressor. And we should point out that the Russians continue to say that they have no plans to invade Ukraine. But what is the risk to the Baltic states at this point?
I think the risk of kinetic attack on the Baltics is very low. I think the risk of continued hybrid pressure is very high. And if the West does not remain resolute, then of course all kinds of opportunities will open up to put further pressure on them. But for right now, membership protects them. The Article 5 promise is strong. And quite frankly, I think the NATO alliance comes out of this crisis much, much stronger in terms of the need recognized by all allies to deploy even further troops forward to defend the Baltics, to defend our allies in Southeast Europe, to defend allies across the alliance.
Is there a risk? I mean, the US and President Biden has made it very clear he doesn't want to see US troops on the ground in Ukraine. But is there a risk that the West, that NATO gets sucked into this conflict more directly?
I don't think there's a risk of direct combat. I think the big risk that you see in any warfare is that the borders of Ukraine may now become chaotic if larger offensive maneuvers by the Russians occur. If Russia really starts causing casualties and you start seeing refugees pour across NATO borders to the west, then NATO troops are going to have to move forward to control the refugee flows, to help them, to aid them. Does conflict spill over? Does that have a chance to trip into a broader NATO on Russia conflict? It does, but then you're talking about the NATO response to a massive humanitarian crisis caused by Russia. The blame will be clear on Russia, as we heard from the UN Security Council dialogue last night. Countries around the world condemning Russia. It's a very interesting situation. And very tense.
Okay, let's draw on your experience. Let's draw on your experience at NATO then, and particularly around arms control, as the two sides square off against each other, the separatists and potentially Russian military, if they do indeed go to those territories, versus the Ukrainian army. What is the military capability of the Ukrainians? The consensus seems to be that they are no match for Russia, and that Russia will be easily able to overcome those forces. Is that your assessment? Is that the correct way to look at it?
Russia has amassed such immense capability, especially in terms of precision-guided missiles, cruise missiles launched from the air, from ground, from sea. They have very advanced amphibious attack aircraft in the, amphibious attack ships in the Black Sea, ready to attack there as well. They have very advanced electronic warfare and special operations. But if we're talking about force-on-force grinding conflict, Ukraine can inflict a lot of damage on the Russian military. Russia has tremendous advantage if they do standoff warfare, but if it's in terms of taking and holding territory, I think the Ukrainian army can elicit tremendous costs from Russian forces if they move west.